You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael, and with me always tonight is my good friend.
Is Jay here in Texas.
Yeah. And doing all right down in Texas? Is it getting any cooler?
Yeah, that's a new one. Is it getting any cooler? I haven't heard that before.
Well, because it's cooling down here in Arizona.
What, from 120 to 110?
Yes, but that's a good thing.
Well, that is cool. Technically, that is cooler. No, it's still above 100, and it's been doing that. It's been the same like that for the past 3 months. So I'm ready for fall/winter to come.
Yeah, well, I hear you. So, well, what's new tonight? We got a couple of projects that we're building, and I think everybody has something going on. We're trying to get Alaska Mike on our call tonight, but that didn't work out. So we're not.
That did not work out at all.
We're not going to be able to hear his maiden, but he maidened the
Tame Cat.
Tame Cat again, and did a couple of modifications to it. So I think it's flying well. We'll have to get him on the horn and get him to update us on that. You've got a new airplane that you just received, and you're in the process of putting some stuff together. And of course,
I'll really go into detail. I think about maybe another podcast because it's still in bits and pieces all around the room. Right. But I will have to say, where I've been complaining about a few models lacking here or there, I was mildly surprised with this plane. It's very well thought out, even down to the box that they send it to you in. I was amazed just how they thought that box out.
Yeah, actually my model that came in as well was was very well thought out as well. They actually
it surprised you very much, didn't it? Because it wasn't a double box.
It wasn't. The box came in, and I thought it was one of those boxes inside a box. And so the way they had it taped up and everything, I was like, oh, well, I'll just undo the end of it. So I tried to cut the tape and pulled the ends off, and they didn't work. And I thought, well, this is really strange. Then I noticed it had tape all the way around, the top of the box. So I thought, well, I'll cut that tape off. So I cut the tape
over the
off.
top of the box, or around it,
the box, like to make the seam, like where the top of the box touches the sides. It was taped right there. So I thought, well, maybe it has a fold out. So I tried to undo the little end, the top end, and then I thought, okay, well, that didn't work. So maybe it opens up, long ways, like that part folds down. So I cut the tape, and what actually happened is the lid came up like a chest, so I lifted the whole lid off, and I was like looking in the box going, holy smokes, but it was corrugated cardboard that they had built a box out of. So it wasn't actually like a cardboard box and then another cardboard box inside it. It was actually one full, however many sides, 4 sides, around it, and then a lid and a bottom. And they glued them all on, except for the top. You can lift the top off like a hinge. Anyway, so I opened it up, and sure enough, there's a nice shiny airplane in there. Thanks to Mr. Neely. He
happy birthday.
He sent he got me a Yak 55. It's a Skyline, I believe, is who makes it, a Skyline Yak 55. It's their second version, I believe. And so anyway, I open it up. It's this yellow and red color. It's got black checkerboards on it and red checkerboards. And I used to own a real Yak 55, like the Russian. I used to fly it. So I mean, I do aerobatic competitions, and I had this Yak 55. Well, I've sold it recently in the last year, and I don't have any Yak 55 airplanes, and so this one showed up, and I think Jay probably explained it better than me, but I think he had visions of me doing something to this, or at least flying it and reminiscing about my yak. Well, I think I took it as always. Jay gets me involved in a project, and I take it to the maximum or the very next step or whatever you want to call it.
I wanted to go here, and then next thing I know, what are you doing way up there?
Yeah, exactly.
I did not mean for you to spend $10,000 on this project.
I know, right?
So
I took the airplane apart, and I started thinking about it because the cat, I think, got let out of the bag, and I figured out it was coming. And so anyway, we had talked about it, and I have a bunch of photos of my old airplane. And so as a result, I made the decision that I think I could probably make it look like my real Yak 55. And it was a pretty good project for me. And it could be done a little bit, at a time. So I opened the box, checked all the parts. They all look good. And first thing out of the box was the wing. And I opened it up, unbagged it, reached over to the corner and stripped off the
So tell the
covering.
folks, so what color was your yak?
It was yellow. And
no,
yak.
Your
real
yak.
yak.
You're the real yak.
Yeah, I thought you meant the one that came in the box. The one in the box was yellow and red and black. Mine was red, white, and blue.
Whoops.
So the yellow didn't work. And I, it was just one of those things. I looked at it and I thought, I'm not familiar enough with monocoat. I haven't worked a whole lot with it because most of the models that we get are basically foamies or, I have a lot of balsa wood stuff and they're almost ready to fly, but they come already covered. I haven't really, unlike Alaska Mike, who built a stick when I covered it, I haven't done that. So anyway,
well, you've worked a little bit with monocoat. I mean,
yes,
you've repaired like tore a corner or you tore a little bit off the wing and you put a patch on it. So you're a little familiar with it.
I am a little familiar. I mean, I have all the tools.
But not covering a whole plane from scratch type thing.
No, I have not built from, as you say, a redwood seed and then mill my own and that kind of thing. So no, I haven't grown any redwood trees. So anyway, I stripped all the covering off of it, and now I have basically the entire airplane is nothing but the raw balsa. And I will tell you that the good news about stripping balsa or stripping the monocoat off of it is that if it's fairly new, it comes off in one big sheet. It doesn't strip or tear or stick. So I was very, very lucky in the fact that every major piece came off in one full piece. I didn't have anything that stuck to the balsa, which is unfortunate when you buy an airplane or if you got an airplane from someone else or off Craigslist or wherever, hand me down. If it's been out in the heat or, it's just older, sometimes that glue, or if they use some sort of adhesive spray, sometimes the glue sticks. So I was lucky in that sense that I got everything apart. So having said all that, now I have a raw balsa wood and I have to decide, how to go about and do the monocoat. So I found 3 colors. The white, obviously, is just the jet white from Top Flight. And then the red is the deep red, and the blue is what they call an insignia blue. So those are the 3 colors that were closest to my Yak's colors. The problem that I ran into is twofold. The monocoat was not the issue. It was the 2 pieces in there that were painted. The cowl.
What do you mean?
The cowl and the canopy.
Oh, yeah.
Because the canopy is clear plastic, but it's got, it's painted, and it's painted yellow and red or yellow and black. The cowl is actually a round cowling, and it's fiberglass. You are correct.
Yeah.
And it basically is a yellow with a black checkerboard around. So now I have these black checkerboards that have been painted on top of the yellow, and now they stick up just a little bit. So if I painted something over it, I would literally have these raised checkerboards. Right. You would be able to see through it.
Right.
So I'm scratching my head trying to figure out what to do with that. In the meantime, I run to the store and once again, shout out to Hobby Bench there in Phoenix. Went and saw Rick. He ripped out some, here you go. Need 2 rolls of this, 1 roll of this. And I walked out with, some monocoat and a couple of trim sheets to come home.
Now, what are the trim sheets?
The trim sheets are the sticky monocoat. They run about, 2.5 feet, maybe 24, 36 inches. And it's just probably about a 4-inch strip and, 30 inches or 36 inches long. And basically you can cut it, and then when you peel it, it's got an adhesive back, and you can kind of stick it on.
So you don't have to iron it down.
No.
I remember when I worked with someone, I was trying to do a 2 or 3 layer tier, and I had to be real careful when I put on, that other layer and try to shrink it to it, that, or not shrink it, but glue it down or tack it down, that I'd shrink the underneath it too much, or the top wouldn't shrink enough. And it was...
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, it does happen like that. The trim sheets are basically, if you just cut them, you can just lay them down like a sticker.
Nice. That's very nice.
It is really convenient, I guess is the right word. The good news is that, if you're cutting something out, from the trim sheet, then, you can just stick it to the model and do whatever you need to do. So if you're making like stars or circles or stripes or something, you can do multiple colors, and you can just kind of lay it down. So I had a couple of those. I had 1 red and 2 whites, because I have 2 white stripes that go down the side of the airplane. I will try to post a picture of, we'll see if we can post a picture of the real airplane on the website, and then the kind of my model in the process, and see if I can get, see if we can get some comments on what it looks like. But the first thing that I did was try to cover the wing, because that's the largest single surface. I haven't dealt, like I said, with the monocoat before, so I basically unrolled it, got the right setting, figured out the temperatures, cut it to kind of match the wing, and then just said, hallelujah, here we go, and touched the wing, touched the iron to the wing. It didn't take much pressure, and the monocoat really does a good job. Now, I do have a background a little bit in working with vinyl, custom vinyls, like car wraps, trailer wraps, that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
So I do have that experience doing that, and actually the monocoat worked out. As I started working with it, I realized that it was very similar to what I was used to. Rather than having an adhesive back and a squeegee, I just had a iron. So I used it the same way. So it wound up, working really, really well. It does have a couple of complex curves on it, and if you put a little heat gun to it, or, a little bit of stretch to it, it'll stretch around some of those compound curves. But what I was finding is, that it would start to curve and start to make a bubble or a crease. And I really needed to, cut the monocoat where it matched the angle. That way it wouldn't kind of crinkle. Does that make sense?
Right. So you had to put in just slight, like, crease lines, cut crease lines, or just...
Well, no, I'm just saying that because I had so much material and I was stretching it and pulling on it, that as I pulled it around the complex curve,
it would crinkle.
Yeah, it would just start to crinkle up. And then what would have been better is if I would have been able to cut a line where it rolled right to the edge. So, like, let's say the leading edge. If I go all the way around the leading edge, it wants to stick onto the bottom, and it doesn't really form as well. It kind of leaves bubbles on the front, and it stretches in different, it attaches itself and stretches different.
Depending on how you're
pulling on it.
Okay.
Well, it's a lot easier, and I noticed when I pulled the old covering off that they actually have a top part and a bottom part that overlap by about 1/4 of an inch on the leading edge.
Oh, okay.
So it just rolls to the edge, and that way, because your material's ending right there, you don't have any of that crinkling, problem. Because now whenever you roll it over the edge, you're already at the end. So there's no stretching or anything. It just lays down. Well, I was having, issues with that. So I covered this wing. I got it all, nice and tight and figured it all out. Got the ends of the wing all curved. I was so excited. I took photos. I sent them over to everybody.
I saw the pictures, and I was like, "Wow, you did pretty good quick work and a quick amount of time, and with minimum stress." I was quite amazed.
Right, and so the Yak itself, the real Yak 55, is red on the bottom, white on the top. I put the wing together, did the aileron, got everything matched, and then as I started looking at it, I realized the servo. The servo hole is on the top, and it should be on the bottom.
Why would the Chinese do this to me?
It was really frustrating for me. I could not understand that. So I went over and got the other one, and I looked, and sure enough, that one's on the bottom. And then the light bulb came on because I was working late and realized that I had just covered the wrong side with the wrong color. So I got to practice. I was able to practice because I covered the top part.
Way to stay positive.
Part. Yeah.
Way to turn a negative into a positive.
Right.
At least you got some training out of it.
Yes, I did.
Excellent, buddy.
Well, unfortunately I covered the top of the airplane with the red, and it was supposed to be white, and I covered the bottom part with the white. So now I have this beautiful wing, and I thought, you got to be kidding me, because that's it's a 60-inch wingspan, so it's not a small wing. It's a pretty sizable wing. It takes up my whole desk. I used up almost half a roll or more of monocoat. So that, and let me tell you, folks, monocoat's not $2 like it used to be. It's gotten up there now. I think a roll of monocoat runs around $15. So that was a $7 or $8 mistake. And I had to wind up, basically ripping it off and starting from scratch. So the good news is the second attempt was even better than the first. It laid down. I was able to figure out that instead of just rolling the monocoat roll out and then just, kind of putting it on the wing while the monocoat was rolling around, that I could actually put it on there and cut it in the size of the wing. And that made it very convenient because now I was only working with a much smaller piece, and that smaller piece just laid right on top of the wing, and I could just kind of move it. So I set it down and traced it out, and basically, picked the wing up and made sure I had the right size. The monocoat has a film on one side that you peel off. So I peeled that off, and that exposes the glue adhesive. Thank you. And so I laid it on the wing, and I started to realize that something didn't look right. And I'm like, why? Okay. Why is this not working correctly? And so I'm moving this thing around, and I've already kind of stuck the first part down because I laid it on the wing. Like I just cut it, and I laid it on the wing. So I'm like, well, okay, that it's sitting where it should be. So I start ironing from the middle of it, and I kind of go out, and then I realize that this thing doesn't fit. It's the cut where the aileron should be is on the top of the wing, on the front of the wing, and the aileron is on the bottom. The long part is on the bottom. So I'm trying to move it around, and as I kind of peeled it off again, and I'm looking around, and I realized once again the light bulb came on that mistake number 2 is that it was upside down. So I had the bottom of the top. So I had stretched it out and cut the top of it. So the wing's upside down, right? The wing is upside down. I trace out the wing and the cut, and then I turn the wing right side up, the one that I'm supposed to. But then when I pull the sticky part off of the bottom and lay it down there, it actually should go to the other wing. So I realized that I had just traced out from the backside. So it's now backwards, right? If that makes sense. Luckily for me, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense to me because now it's, I tried to put it on there and it wasn't working. So I ran and got the other wing. And sure enough, it fits perfectly on this wing because, that's the side it's supposed to go on. So I was able to once again put the monocoat down and make it look real nice. But that would have been mistake number 2, and I was almost frustrated to like wad it up and throw it away. And then I thought, well, that's a whole dang roll again. So I got to stop doing this.
Well, I got to say, good save.
Yeah,
good save.
I saved that. But it came back to bite me because the aileron got reversed. I did the white and the red on the bottom parts again.
So from this mistake now, do you have a couple of things that you're going to do different on future, if you ever do this again, that you're going to do a little different?
Funny you mentioned that, because I know you and I have talked about it before. And yes, so what I would do different is take some blue painter's tape or a magic marker or something and write literally on the piece of wood, top, bottom, the color red, bottom's white, so that when I lay it down and I realize, okay, this is the white part, and then I need to make sure that I put the top coating, which is exposed to the air, not the adhesive side. So I have to put the adhesive side on the actual side that the color is, or is the color, before I cut it, so that I'm not cutting it on the shiny side and then realize I cut it upside down.
And in fact, I would use not just, I think the painter's tape is perfect, but I would use the stuff like your frog tape that's in yellow or green,
right?
And the normal blue stuff. And the reason I would do that is that you could actually, when you write on the wing, like, top, bottom, you do it in two different colors. And when you make your cutouts, then you label them top, bottom in the appropriate colors. Therefore, something's going to cue you as you go to put it on. You go, oh, this was yellow, this is blue. Oh, it's reverse. You flip it over, you see the yellows on the other side, and you go, oh, I should go on this side. Okay. For those 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're putting your models together, it might help you out and save you. So
I know, and part of that was the problem, because I'd come home from my day, and I'd say, oh, I'm just going to spend 5 or 10 minutes. I'll do something. I'll just iron the
3 hours. 3 hours later,
yeah, and I look up and it's like 2:45 in the morning, and I'm thinking, oh man, I got to get up early and go do my thing, and it just it was frustrating. However, I did get the other thing that was frustrating about it is that the original airplane had these nice tight 1/4-inch lines all the way around the edge, and everything was such a nice clean cut. It was very difficult to use my X-Acto knife and try to cut while it was on the wood, and I'd try to cut it when it was just on. I have a big cutting mat, so I would trace it out and use a straight edge and then kind of move it around, and sometimes that worked, but sometimes I needed to stretch it, so I needed a little bit more material, and then I had to kind of cut it after it was already on there, and I was having a really hard time figuring out how to make this look a little bit more professional and not to have all this stuff, really hanging out everywhere.
And didn't you say also that your blades were dulling pretty quickly?
They are. They do.
Have problems with your regular X-Acto knife blades, and they would just dull, and you would be tearing or not cutting the monocoat as crisp.
That is correct. And unfortunately, you go to Michael's or a hobby shop or somewhere to buy X-Acto blades, and they come in a little pack of like 5 blades. And they're fairly expensive. They're $8 or $10 or whatever for those 5 blades. And monocoat kills those blades. I mean, they are literally within a couple of cuts just dull as all get out. So what I did is I went online, and I'm thinking it was somewhere either Hobby King or Banggood or Amazon. One of those places has some basically X-Acto knives that come in a pack of 100. And I ordered a box. Actually, I ordered 2 boxes, I think, but I wasn't really sure. And I agree. You're, giving me the surgical blades, and you can order those as well, and they're probably just as good. And the Olfa blade as well. So I ordered 100, a pack of 100, and then that actually made it better, because now I can, use 2 or 3 or 4, 2 or 3 or 4 X-Acto blades to be able to. You guys can't see up there, but he's holding all these blades up. Obviously, you had an order too, right? I mean,
yes, I did.
Talking about it, you got surgical, scalpel blades and some other stuff. But yeah, the pack of 100 came in, and it worked out much better. The point I was trying to make earlier, though, is that even with a sharp blade, if you don't have a straight edge or somewhere, to try and cut, and the and your blade, you just want to cut the top layer or just through.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes I found myself trying to hold it and it would dig into the wood and I don't want to do that too. Yep. So jump in a car, drive up to Hobby Bench again, and then talking to Rick about it because he's recovered a bunch of airplanes and he's built all kinds of stuff and does a really cool job. And he goes, "Oh, you don't have a top flight tool for Monaco? You don't have a Monaco tool?" I'm like,
"There's a Monaco tool." I'm sure,
exactly,
Mr.
right?
Collector of tools.
Well, and you know me, right tool
gadgets
for right
and
job.
widgets and gadgets. Yeah,
and he still actually. I just saw him today, and he was making fun of my my Clevis tool that I told you I got last time. But he basically gives me this Monocoat tool, and it has 2 blades on it, and you can basically put it on the side of the airplane, draw it down, and it leaves a perfect cut line all the way around, the inside of the wing, and it'll cut right down the leading edge. It makes incredibly precision cuts and doesn't cut through all the way to the model. It just cuts the top part of the Monocoat.
Nice.
It took me a little bit. I will tell you that if you look it up or you take a look at it and you get one, it does take a little bit of time to figure out where the right angle is because it's got a 45-degree angle, a 90-degree angle, and then you can freehand it. It's got a little addition where you can do a 1/4 inch or a 16th inch cut. So you have to kind of take a little bit of time and read it and then do a couple practice runs because once or twice I grabbed it and put it on the cut and I cut the Monocoat clean off. I was like, what happened? Well, it's because you had to turn it to the other side and you had to use the other side of the wood to make it cut in the middle, not on the very edge. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not the most user-friendly, but once you figure it out, it does a fantastic job. Fantastic job. So anyway, we did both wings. I finally got the ailerons right. Both of those looked really, really good. They were really tight and, no wrinkles. And now it came time for the body. And the body was a little bit more difficult. It's got 3 colors to it as opposed to just 2. And so I was trying to figure out whether to wrap the whole body in white and then put darker colors over top of it, or if I, should just wrap the bottom and the top in blue and the middle in red and then just put white stripes down. And I think just by virtue of looking the way the other stuff came off, that they had it cut in like 3 different pieces, I figured that was the best way to go. So I cut a piece for the top in blue and the bottom in blue, and then I cut 2 pieces for the sides in red. And I'm going to, I was going to use the trim sheet. Thank you. The trim sheet for the white stripes that go down the body. That worked out. After, 2 wings and 2 ailerons, doing one of them twice or the aileron 3 times. I can't remember how many times. I went through probably 2 rolls of Monocoat just practicing, but I got them all figured out and situated. And then the body was just pretty much really easy because it was just a big rectangle. I put it on there, worked like a charm. Now comes the hard part because now I'm staring at the cowling and the canopy.
Right. So this you can't Monocoat. You're going to have to paint this stuff. This is now you're departing from the Monocoat, and now this is once again in your realm because as long as I've known you, that's been the great thing about with the foamies. You've been painting this stuff. I'd go to you and ask you how you did stuff. So this seems like this would be easy. Should take you about 5 minutes.
And yes, and so I ripped out my my painter's tape and I taped off the canopy. And then I realized that I needed to match the Monocoat color, which is an insignia blue. So I ran over to the hobby store, and what do you know? The Top Flight no longer carries that. I think they call it a not ultra coat. It's the what's the spray paint stuff that they?
You're asking. I got old man's disease.
I know, me too. Anyway, it's a spray paint that they carry that looks like it's the same color as the Monocoat itself. And So anyway, I went to the store to get some of that stuff, and unfortunately, they don't make it anymore. So the only color that they had was white. So I went ahead and grabbed.
Put you in a little. Yeah, we got, as long as you want it in white. Yeah, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, you got it. We can get you.
We got off white. We got egg white.
No, they just had the jet white. It was just the white.
Just
color,
jet white. Okay.
But I was really hoping to get the blue because the white and the red I didn't really need. I can do, that wasn't the cowling. The cowling is red, and it was the blue that I had to match because I could match the red. So I taped it off, and then now I'm kind of wondering if I should remove the paint that's on the cowling, or if I should sand it, or because I'm scratching my head. I made the decision to go ahead and rough it up so it would take a clean coat. So I basically got some 400 grit wet dry sandpaper, and I used it dry to begin with, just to take the clear coat off of the canopy. Now you have to be very careful because if you don't mask it off first, you could scratch the canopy, the clear coats that are not being painted. But it was painted before, so running the 600 grit or 400 grit sandpaper over it. I even got it wet a little bit and did some auto sanding where I got all the bubbles and everything out, and it took all the the shiny stuff off so it would accept that coat of paint.
Now this is the cowling, or
canopy.
This is the
canopy.
Canopy. Okay,
right.
The canopy.
So the canopy. So it's all taped off on the clear parts. What's exposed is a red color because that's what the canopy color was, red, and my airplane was blue. So I basically was now looking for this insignia blue color. I couldn't find it anywhere, and believe it or not, I happened upon Ace Hardware, and I walked in there, and they actually have a brand, an Ace brand of paint that's called International Blue. Man, it matches spot on. I mean,
and the other stuff was called Luster Coat.
Luster Coat, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Luster Coat. Evidently, they haven't made that in quite some time, and unfortunately, I think they're looking for, according to my sources, they're looking for a new vendor to help them with that paint. So hopefully, it'll be back in the stores soon. But the Ace Hardware had one that matched almost perfectly, and they had a can of red that was International Red, and it matched my red almost perfectly as well.
Oh, nice.
So I was able to come home, and I put a little hanger, and luckily for me, our paint booth outside is about 110 degrees, so it was pretty easy to lay down a coat of paint or two, and I think I painted 2 coats, and then I used the 600 grit sandpaper to sand it again, and then put another coat over the top of it. It is a gloss, so I didn't have to put a clear coat on it because it matches the monocoat pretty well.
Oh, okay.
So that went.
Well, that sounds like that went
really fast,
fairly quickly.
Yeah, it was really, really quick. Then comes the canopy. Then comes the cowl. Now the cowl we talked about earlier that had the checkerboards on it, and I knew that the checkerboards are going to show underneath this red paint. I had some red paint that is Tester's brand, and I like to use the Tester's brand because it dries very hard, and it's a very good it's got some properties in it if you've ever used Tester's, but I like their Tester's model master model builders, and the spray paint version of it. I usually use the airbrush, but this was a big enough part that I could use a rattle can. It was pretty easy. So the thing that I like about the rattle can is it's got some properties in there that as it's drying, if something makes an indentation in it, it will actually self-level and move itself out. So you can handle it after an hour or two, but you'll find that it may be sticky and you put a fingerprint in it. If you just put it back and let it hang for 24 hours, normally it will self-level, and then it will be this really hard, very tough paint. So I had some red. I took some sandpaper and I sanded all the edges off of the black squares because they're black checkerboards, and they're fairly large.
So you just took what grit? That doesn't sound like that was too difficult to sand the paint. So did you sand it down to the bare?
No.
down to bare fiberglass,
No,
or did you get it down to a primer coat, or did you just, for each individual square, you just sanded it till it was like they were gone?
So you can run your finger over, I could run my finger from the front of the canopy to the rear, and I could feel the little, bump in there. So I took probably 250 grit sandpaper, and I started, just doing where my finger could feel the difference. And then as I got that some of it came off, like the black started coming off, and then, it kind of blended in. And then I just kind of went all the way around until I could run my hand over it and not feel it. Then I jumped up to the 400 grit, sanded it all, jumped up to the 600 grit, sanded it all. And I thought, okay, we're good. We're golden because it's smooth all the way around. Washed it all up, dried it for, a day. Then I took my Tester's spray, red spray paint that matches my monocoat, and went back out into my 110 degree, 120 degree spray booth and hung it up and sprayed the whole cow. Bad news.
There's bad news?
Yeah, the bad news was that, unfortunately, I wasn't paying as close of attention as I should with the paint that I had. It was translucent, not opaque. So it basically coated the whole cowling red, but it's see-through red. So it didn't coat like what you would normally think. So now you can.
But that must have been, when did you figure that out? Because wouldn't it be like you sprayed it once and you go, first light coat, and then you go back with the next coat and it was still translucent? Oh,
that is correct. Yeah. Okay. So the first coat, I figured, it just laid it down really, really lightly, and you can still see some of the black squares and the yellow behind it. And I thought, okay, I'll just let that dry for a little bit. Then I came back in, sprayed it again, and then realized, wait a second, why isn't this covering like normal? I mean, it should cover and turn red. And it wasn't. It was still, you could see through the red. It was turning it red, but you could still see the black squares. You could still see the yellow underneath it. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not working correctly at all. And I went back, and sure enough, this is translucent paint for foam. When I use it on foam, it's no big deal because the foam is white. So it'll just kind of show this translucency.
Right. So right now your cow's still yellowish. Right?
Yes, it's yellow and black. You can still see everything. It just has a red luster coat around it. It's a real pretty, coat of red. Always fabulous. Well, I got frustrated, and I thought, you know what, this sucks. And so I thought, well, I'll just have to put a primer coat on it. So I grabbed my luster coat from Top Flight, and I walked outside, and the Testers, like I said, takes about 24 to 48 hours to harden up. Well, I was a little impatient and didn't wait that. So I basically sprayed the white paint over top of the Testers.
Right.
So the whole thing was painted white, and it looked great. It had a nice coat, like you were mentioning, painting's not new to me. So I had a real nice coat, no runs. It was really, really nice. Let it dry overnight, came back, and I thought, okay, well, I'll put another coat of white on it before I paint the red, and that way for sure it won't, show these little squares. And so I took my 400 grit sandpaper, and I started sanding lightly. And as I did, I noticed that some of the paint started rippling. So it was no longer smooth. It came up like a carpet. Like if your carpet's not down and you step on it and it just kind of comes up and bunches up.
Yeah.
That's right. The way the paint did on the cowling. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I just wasted half a can of this, the $11 spray paint on this cowling, and now it's all ripply. And so I really didn't understand what was happening. So I just kind of touched it. And when I did, it was like, have you ever left like a chocolate cake out or something, where it got hot and it just starts sliding, the top of it just starts sliding off?
Right.
That's the way this paint was doing. It was literally sliding down the side. I could take my finger and move the whole column of paint. And it wasn't all of the paint. It was only some of it. And so I started moving around this cowling and realized that the Testers had not dried. And the Testers, to get hard, has this enamel, and it has to outgas is what they call it. And so I had covered that up, and now it had outgassed and created as bubbles underneath this top flight luster coat. So now half of the luster coat is just sliding right off the canopy. It looks terrible. And
when you sent me pictures, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was like,
it was awful.
Is this modern art? What am I
modern art?
It was just all this runny, gooey, whatever.
Oh yeah, it was gooey
type
too.
art. And we'll have to add that to the show notes or a picture or two in there, because it just looked awful.
Yeah,
from that beautiful white to this just runny whatever it was. And I was like, he's like, look what happened. I'm like, that was before, right? And he's like, no, this is what's happening now. And I'm looking. I was totally confused with the pictures when he was sending to me, folks. It didn't make any. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. But it looked bad.
Well, you could comprehend the frustration on my end. That's what. It was tough.
After I talked to you, that was pretty funny.
But what I wound up doing is basically, I tried to start sanding it, and the more I tried to sand it, the more the red started coming up, and it was obvious to me that the red testers had not dried.
Yeah, you can't sand taffy.
No, and that's exactly what it was. Every time I ran across it, it would start slip sliding, and it was a mess, people. I mean, it just was terrible. And I wound up having to get, some paint remover, and I pulled all of the white off. I scrubbed, with this paint remover and pulled all of the red off to where it was now back down to just the yellow and black. Now, bad news was I just went through 2 cans of, $12 paint. But along with the monocoat, that was, a good learning experience. I can chalk that up to next time. But in the meantime, I decided that I would definitely have to sand it, because there were rough spots where the bubbles were, and some of the paint had adhered to the undercoat. So I literally, as I started, moving some of this paint stuff around, then because I had sanded it earlier, some of the black was coming off, and it was coming down. It actually, several parts had already gone down to the raw fiberglass. Yeah. So now I have multiple layers because, there were several pieces that had chipped out, come out, and it's got like 5 or 6 coats of primer on it. And I was just like, oh, this looks terrible. I mean, it looked so bad. Jay's right. I mean, I sent him a picture. He's like, what the heck is this? It was not good. So I went and got some about 150 grit sandpaper, and I worked a couple of hours on getting everything just sanded back to normal. So a large portion of it, there were large sections that were right down to the fiberglass, and you really shouldn't paint that. So I had to go out and get a primer, and I got the learning my lesson from the last time. I got the red. What do they call that? It's not a rust color, but it's it's kind of got like a rust color to it. But it's what they use, underneath for like metals and stuff. So I used that. It was this
Rust-Oleum?
Yeah, it was a Rust-Oleum type paint, but it's got that, the red color to it. And so it's like a color of a brick, it's okay. Just kind of red. But anyway, it's a flat paint, and I painted that, sanded it, painted it, sanded it, and got about 3 coats of the primer on it. It looked really good. It was covering up all of the yellow and the black. I didn't have any ridge lines or anything. And then I basically went to my red enamel and sprayed the whole thing in red. So it worked out. I think I sent photos after I got all the red put on there, and you can almost see yourself in it. It's a really, really good, shiny paint. And I've probably got about 6 coats of it on there. And between every coat, I sanded with 400 and then 600 grit, and then I repainted it. So it looks really, really good. And unfortunately, it's not all red. There is some blue and white on it. So I had to figure out, okay, well, now what do I do? So I matched it up with the body. It's got a little blue circle on the top. I masked it off, sprayed the same color as the canopy, and then sprayed the bottom as well. So It's got a red.
So how did you do that? I mean, did you mask? I mean, like
I did.
You totally on the okay. So first you put the cowling on. So did
Correct.
you already like put the holes in it to mount it so that every time you could mount it back to the same spot, or did you just tape it on the plane, or how did you get it so that you didn't take it off, put it back on, and then misalign it?
Yeah.
I mean,
So the blue itself, it only had to be a half circle. So it was literally like a half circle. And it didn't really have to be that big. But the good news is that it's going to have white around the blue. So it doesn't matter, the edge of what the edge of the blue looks like. So I basically slid it on and then just used some blue painter's tape, and I taped it around to get the proper shape. And then once I got the proper shape, I just sprayed it blue on the top and the bottom.
Okay, so the white trim piece that you were going to put on after that, you didn't have to be as critical to get it perfect. You just had to get it in the ballpark,
right? Because the white's going to the white trim would cover everything. Right.
Okay.
I will tell you though that it was very easy for me. I have a computer. I have Adobe Illustrator. It's a computer program, and I went in there and actually designed the stripe itself, and I cut it out. I printed it out, and I cut the paper. And then I had some extra vinyl laying around from a job way back when, and I cut the vinyl out and then just put it over there. So the vinyl actually masked where I needed to paint the blue paint, and that made it a little bit more, professional looking. It wasn't just spraying it on there. It actually had the curvature. And then I basically did exactly that. I cut that out. I measured it all out, and I made it into this, this little wide stripe that comes across the nose, and it worked out great. And while I was thinking about it, I have a Russian star that's on the nose, so I just cut that out as well, slapped those on there, and now it looks just like the real thing. It's pretty exciting. Actually.
Okay, so once you got it painted, actually the things that I would think, well, it would have been difficult for me to do because I didn't happen to have the equipment that you do. Actually was a lot easier just because you had the right tools for the job. So it made that part go really quick for you. So I'm glad that part worked out.
I had the what?
You had the right tools for the job.
Yes, that's exactly right. I say that all the time. The right tool for the right job. Thank you for backing me up there.
Well, like I said, if I was doing it, it would be quite, that looks about right. And I would have been like, some tape,
right,
cutting it with the X-Acto knife. That looks about right. There you go.
Well, the funny part about it is that
nice.
I was working on it this last weekend, and we had a friend in town, and she's a friend of my wife. She was sitting there at the table while I was doing this, and I was trying to get the stripes on the cowling and the body to line up. So now that I have the cowling where it needs to be, I have these stripes coming down, and I wanted to kind of get them all lined up, and so she starts looking at this thing, and she's like, "Are you eyeballing this whole thing? You're just kind of wagging it." And I looked at her, and I was like, "Well, yes and no. I mean, I am wagging it to a point, but I do have a template." She goes, "You do?" And I said, "Yeah, it's right here on my phone." And so I showed her the picture of the real airplane, and she goes, "Wait. She goes, "You're doing this whole thing off of what you see on this phone?" And I went, "Yeah. I mean, it was my airplane. I know what it was painted like, and I just have photos of it. I don't have the real airplane anymore to, go take measurements or anything." And she goes, "Wow, that's pretty impressive that you're able to just look at the photo and then make it look like it is in the photo." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's not my first, time around the block, so I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's pretty close. If it's flying, you'd never know the difference. I mean, I'll show the pictures. If you got up close, there are a few mistakes, and I'm learning, but it did turn out very, very close to the real thing. Good news is I found some Russian stars from a company called Major Decals, and they worked out perfect. They were exactly what I needed for the top of the airplane. And
good.
Yeah, they're sticky as well. So you just peel them off and stick them on there, and they worked out great.
Yeah, because I know we were talking a little bit about whether you're going to do them monocoat, whether you're going to try to do them in vinyl. Whether you're going to give Callie a call, which way you're going to go with the stars. So that's kind of nice that you stumbled upon those, right?
I did stumble upon them. They just happened to be in the back shelf all covered in dust because, how many people buy Russian stars. But And I was actually to the point where I had just measured everything out. I was going to put something into Illustrator and try to send it over to Callie and say, hey, can you print these out? Because I know she does a great job over there. But I just happened onto these, and it was exactly what I needed. Unfortunately, it's only in the red portion. Now I need a white section for the bottom, so I had to design those myself. But it was pretty easy now that I had a template of the actual star, distance and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was easier for me to cut them out. And I do have a vinyl cutter that I can, make it a little more precise. So it worked out. But I to the point now where I have almost everything covered. Oh, I was going to tell you, it came with a really nice carbon fiber landing gear. And I love the carbon fiber look. I really do. And just for our listeners, I was contemplating whether to leave this carbon fiber look or to try and make it a little more scale and to look more like the real airplane. So I wound up calling Jay and saying, hey, this is my dilemma. What should I do? And you made that decision for me.
Well, after I'm hearing this story, through the whole couple of weeks of you going through this, putting this together in the trials and tribulations, and then you were like, "Oh, I love this gear. This gear is really good. It's well built. Oh, it's beautiful. That beautiful black and it's shiny and it's beautiful." And I'm like, "Yeah, but your gear was aluminum silver looking, and you're going to put this, even though the gear looks good in black, you did all that hard work to get everything right. All these just the cowl alone, and then you're just going to go ahead and make something not authentic. Come on." How much harder it's going to be to paint it? And
it wasn't. So, fortunately, the real airplane has titanium gear. It's a big, metal bar that goes all the way around the gears, like one piece, like it would be in this particular case. And so, back to the store I went, looked around, found some testers, titanium color, and came home and sanded the landing gear. And that was one of those things because it's so, smooth. And I'm thinking, as soon as I put that sandpaper on there, I thought, it's no going back now because, it
ain't pretty anymore,
not
buddy.
pretty anymore. So
what did you use on that? What grit did you use on that?
Same thing. It was already smooth, so I probably could have just sprayed it. But it's always good to knock the clear coat off. And so I didn't really, sand it hard with really hard grit sandpaper. So it was basically, I started with the 600 on that.
Oh, okay.
So the 600 for smoothness, it's already going to take it, all it's going to do is kind of take the shininess out of the
and it's giving the paint something to grab onto.
So that's what I did because it was in really good shape anyway. And so I just sprayed it with the titanium color, and it came out really nice. Installed the wheels on it, and it's on the airplane and looks very authentic. I chose not to put the wheel pants on. It came with wheel pants, but my airplane did not have wheel pants, so I elected not to put them on there.
Okay.
So,
well, that makes sense. I mean, after going through this whole thing. So,
well, if you are a Real Flight user and you are interested in seeing this airplane, it is on Real Flight. If you go to the swap pages and you look for a Yak 55, a lot of them will come up, but the tail number on this one is November N. It's an N1. Let's see, it's November 955 SF or Sierra Foxtrot. So if you type that into the swap pages, it'll come up. I think it's a 50% size Yak. Way back when I had the Yak, years ago, and I was playing Real Flight a lot, I created that, that paint scheme for that particular Yak. So it's in there. If you're interested, drop us a line and tell us you found it, or go play around with it. But that's what it looks like. So I did kind of have a little bit of an idea of what I needed because we had the airplane. The airplane was painted. I had all those photos from when it was painted, and we had this paint program that we did for Real Flight. So. But it's not finished yet. Still a process of doing the last, a couple last minute items. The tail wheel that I got, I didn't really like the tail wheel that came with it, so I bought a nice carbon fiber and aluminum type tail wheel to put on it. I just have to make sure that it sits correctly.
So it was sitting too tall, or what did you like about it?
It's long because it's for like a 30 to 50 size airplane, and this one's more like a 60, more like a 25 size. So it's a little bit long, and it just brings the tail up, to me, probably a little bit higher than I like it. I could probably leave it on there and just upsize my wheels by a 1/2 inch, and that'll probably take care of the problem. So I can't have it too low because the rudder, it's a big rudder, and I don't want it dragging the ground. So I just have to take a look at it and see. But I like the wheels. They're low profile and very lightweight, and
nice.
They're in there.
So what exactly do you have left with your model then? I mean, so you got pretty much all the pieces covered. So what else is there yet to do to, at least getting it to look the part?
Well, I'm to the assembly part now.
Oh, okay, good.
I as any project comes in, I get online and order, or I go down to the shop and pick up parts. And so my servos came in, the motor came in, the ESC is here. So now I'm just I have to run out and get a receiver, or somebody want to send one to me, they can. But anyway, I got nothing wrong with begging for a receiver. Just a 4-channel receiver, and then basically I forgot, but the propeller that we had on the Yak comes originally with a 2-blade propeller. It's a big paddle propeller. I thought about putting that on there, but on my particular Yak we have an MT prop, which is a 3-blade, and it is a wooden prop. And so, as Jay suggested, with the landing gear, we want to kind of do all this work to make it similar, and now this is as close as we can get. So I wound up getting a master air screw prop, sanded it, painted it. Now it looks just like, it's all white with red tips, and it looks just like my aircraft. And I hunted around, and we found a couple of 3-bladed spinners, and we got those painted too. So hopefully we can get it all balanced out. And, my servos came in, so if I can put some servos in. I changed out the hinges from those little fabric hinges to actual pin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the pin hinges, so that it's got a little more rigidity to it. And then from there, it's just a matter of assembling it. So I've done all the work. It's just a matter of getting the airplane put together and get some photos.
So at least the nice part about it was quite an ordeal to recover it and the learning process and stuff of doing this. But the nice part about ripping off the covering was you got to see the bones of the plane. You got to see if there was any, bad glue joints. You got to look at how they put the model together, before you went back and recovered it. You could at least go over it once. Like you said, you didn't like the hinges. You went ahead and changed the hinges out. You were able to make little minor changes, and they were no big deal.
Correct.
And also, if you would have had a problem with, let's say, the servos or the servo holes and stuff where they were supposed to go, this was the time to make modifications to those things before you recovered it, right? So luckily you didn't have to do that, but
Yeah, I should have, but I didn't. So. So basically when Jay sent this to me, Jay ultimately, great friend, he found a build thread, which he does on, most of the time when we start building airplanes. One of us will look around, and RC Groups had a build thread. Well, once again, this model's a couple years old, and we've gone through a couple of versions. And so the build thread that we have was literally version 1 that came across. So everybody's talking about what they did modification-wise, and then the first thing that they complained about was the servo holes were huge. They were like 40 millimeters by 20 millimeters, and they took a standard size servo. And so I'm reading through the build thread to try and get an idea of what, I would like. And I know that there's a couple of standard size servos out there. I wanted metal gear, wanted digital, high voltage. It's a 3D airplane, so, I definitely wanted to go all out on it. And I ordered these servos. Well, they came, I waited a week, and they finally came in, and here I am, pulling a servo out, all excited. I went to go set it in the hole, and it's way bigger than the hole. I mean, this servo is massive compared to this little hole. And I'm looking at this going, what the heck, did I mismeasure? Did I order the wrong servo? So I jump back in and I'm laughing because this one that I have is version like 2 or 3, and the versions that they have is version 1. So originally the hole was really just a big gaping hole, and the guy has the small servo, this little 25-gram servo, and he's stuck in the hole and it's like falling through the hole. Well, they fixed that. So now the new one actually has the smaller hole to where you can put that 25-gram servo in there. And I had to laugh because the photograph that he took on the build thread was exactly the servo that I had sitting in the other room already in my box. But I never went and got it to come out here and realize, oh, this is the servo that would fit, until I got the big ones. And, then I went, oh my gosh, this is not even close. It wouldn't even fit in the hole. I would have to dig out the hole another, 2 or 3 millimeters to get this one to fit. So I ran over there and grabbed the other one and figured out that it fit perfectly in this little hole, and they did a modification. And they actually did a couple more mods in their later versions. They added carbon fiber to the motor box, and they added carbon fiber to the battery tray, which was not included on the very first ones. But I will tell you that I'm impressed with the model. It came with all of the hardware. The hardware's got, the, what do they call those?
Yeah, the control horns and
horns,
the pieces weren't the typical Chinese, skimpy, bendy, crappy, hardware. Because they sometimes send you some chinchy stuff for hardware.
Right, and this is not like that at all. This is carbon fiber control horns. It's, everything is top of the line. I was really impressed for the size and the price of the model. They've done a really good job. So I'm happy so far. Hopefully we'll get it up in the air and be happy with it flying too. So I know the Yaks have some specific characteristics that people don't like. It has a tendency to want to kind of stall or get away from them, and the real airplane flew like that too. It was a fun airplane to fly. I liked it. Anyway, it was a good build, and we're not done with it, but that was kind of my story on the monocoat that kind of got me through. And this was it's been over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
just a little bit of a time.
Actually, it pretty much I'd say 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah, it's gone pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, it did go pretty quick. I was really shocked, but the wings were really large pieces, and they were once I got them done, that was pretty much half the project right there was just the wings and the ailerons. But I think I have to all the hinge pins are glued in on the one side, on the body side, and then I just have to put the aileron, glue epoxy the ailerons onto the hinge pins, the rudder onto it, and the elevator into it. And then it's just a matter of installing the hardware. So
excellent. Well, hopefully here by next time we get back, we might have to hear about how it's all complete, or maybe even out at the field.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Hopefully we'll have it, ready to fly here in another couple weeks, and, we'll see how it goes. We'll enjoy it.
Well, now that it's all done, it's almost like, do you even want to fly it?
I know, right? I thought about going and sitting it in the hangar and then just taking a photo of it and saying, what happened? Your yak shrunk.
Well, you got to do that. You're going to have to do that.
Yeah, the other guys that were involved in the yak with me, I definitely have to take some photos and send it out to them for just nostalgia's sake, because everybody loved that thing. It was such a great airplane. So now it's being used for a new project. I'm sure it'll come out and everybody will be able to see it next year when it hits the air show circuit. But yeah, it's been a fun project so far. I've learned a lot. I have to once again say thanks to you, because you're always pushing me into that direction where I can do new things, and I always appreciate that. I'd never done monocoat before, and this was an opportunity for me to jump in there and do it. I'm not scared of new things. If I screwed it up, I screwed it up. I can always tear it apart and start over, and I can honestly say that by doing this, I think you mentioned something before in one of our other podcasts that this art has kind of gone away. Everything's coming pre-covered already. So unless you just bought a stick build or you bought something you wanted to rip all the covering off, most people are not really, covering airplanes anymore. The foam ones, they don't cover at all.
No, not at all.
No.
And it's like we had that big sale I think I told you about when I was up back in Alaska. A guy had passed on, and he left all of his planes, all of his kit planes to us, to the club. And then we basically did a fundraiser, and we sold the kits. And it was stuff way back to the 70s all the way through, the 2000s. And at first everybody came running in there. They're like, wow, look at all these models. And they would open them up. They're just like, hey, somebody stole the model. It's just pieces of wood in here, and everybody just started laughing because everybody was kind of shocked that came in there. Like, well, aren't there any complete models? And they're like, no, there's the models right there.
Here's the
out
paper.
Some glue, get out a building board and get to it. And, but I have to say at that particular sale, there was a lot of older folks that were up there, and they were just thrilled to see, pristine, perfect models from, because there was a model, if it was your first model, that guy had it, so it was great to see guys grabbing up kits and models that they had when they were kids or whatever. And they were going to go home and put them, they hadn't put a model like that together for a long time. They were like, oh boy, it's going to be nice to, relearn how to do this stuff or do it again. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So like you said, I think it's an art that's been lost, and it's nice to see that you got another taste of it and where you could use it. And, some of these other techniques, you can go right on over to the foamies as well. The trim sheets, the tools, they could be used in other places if you want to make something more realistic. It's quite easy.
Yeah, I actually wound up getting more items that help out, thanks to the guys down there at Hobby Bench. But Rick talked me into getting a couple of new things. I got a rivet maker.
It wasn't too hard, was it?
No, it's never hard. It's never hard. He just points me in the right direction. It's a rivet maker. It's a template that has rivets, and you put them in there. And anyway, it's pretty cool.
What are you going to use that for?
The A10.
Oh, brother. Oh, man. You got it bad.
I do. Well, I mean, I'm telling you though, I am a firm believer that if I need something and I'm trying to wing it, or I mean, we experienced that down at your place. You didn't have the tools readily available that you normally have.
No.
They're in the other room in a box, and we weren't really looking for them, so we're trying to improvise, and it never works out. And
Nope.
me, I'm a model builder from way back when. I mean, when I was a young kid, I had a room full of testers models. I went to, I competed in some of the local fairs and had blue ribbons for some of my stuff. I learned to airbrush at a very young age. So all of that building technique, it all kind of comes with me. And as I got older and older, things had to be a little more precise. Now, I'm not as bad as my buddy Robert. He's got, lasers, and his models are, unbelievable.
Lasers.
Oh yeah, he's got a laser and a milling machine. I mean, his stuff is like far exceeds what I do.
Right. Right.
I haven't gotten that far yet where I'm actually buying a laser to cut, monocode or whatever it is. I've thought about a 3D printer, but it hasn't materialized yet. So, but I am, a firm believer in the right tool for the right job. So,
all right, Mike. Well, I'm glad that my gift is bringing you so much joy and heartache all at the same time.
It is, and as long as I have a new skill out of it, I'm okay with it. And I really, really enjoy the airplane. It's been a great build so far, and I'm looking forward to flying it.
All right, buddy. Well, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, is there anything for our listeners on your neck of the woods, or?
Really, there's nothing too much going on. I think once again, because of the heat, I'm assuming nobody's flying. I know I haven't, I still can't get my butt up early enough to get out there to fly when it's cool, but certainly when things break, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more news for you.
Oh, good. Well, I know that you have a build coming, that you're in the process of doing it. We'll have to talk about that on the next podcast.
Like I said, the plane that I got was SU-35 from Hobby King. It's a propeller-driven SU-35, even though it's a jet, but it's a mid-body mid-bodied one. Kind of takes me back to our beginning days when we, built these little profile foam board, blue core type things.
Sure.
And I saw this, and it has a lot more detailed and seems very similar. And I saw it and I got it. And like I said, I was really impressed at how they put this thing together. So I'm right in the middle of putting it together. So I got bits and pieces all over my not my workbench. I have a workbench bed. So
a workbed bench.
That's right. It's a bed. It's a bench. Right. It's both.
Well, we'll have to make a podcast for that one, and then I know that Mike, we got to get him back on to hear about his maiden, since he's flown his tame cat several times. I know that the guy here, one of my friends here in our little group, Phil, he has finally got his kunai up and running, and so we'll have to get him on the horn and talk to him about his airplane experience building the kunai.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sitting through my build stories, and we hope that you enjoyed hearing it as well. We're always looking for topics of interest here on the Park Flyer Podcast, and we sure hope you have a great time. If you have built something and want to let us know, email us at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. Otherwise, hear from the studios here in Arizona.
And the studio here in big old Texas.
We appreciate listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.